What's good, everybody? We are back to tip off another edition of a Shot of Wisky podcast brought to you by the good folks over at New Amendment as a part of Beyond the Big Ten Podcast Network. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you get your podcast, and on YouTube at Beyond Big Ten, not spelled out, but the number 10. Also, make sure to follow along on all socials. That's Twitter, IG, and TikTok with the handle at Beyond the Big Ten. Again, that is the number 10, not spelled out. I am Jordan Taylor, 2008 to 2012 Wisconsin alum alongside my guy, 2011 second round pick and All-American, Jon Leuer, a.k.a. Cusco. If you haven't seen the movie Emperor's New Groove, go check it out and you will know what I'm talking about. But Johnny, what's good with you? How you feeling this week, man?
You're just going to keep rolling with that nickname every single time on my introduction. All right. I'm good, man. What's going on in London town? Tell me something good.
Man, I love it here. Everything's great. I'm the brand new teammate of our special guest a little later on. So London's great, man. You know what I'm saying? I said I might find love out here. I don't know. There's magic in the air out of London, man. Our team is doing all right. We're trying to get to the Euro Cup playoffs. Got a big game this week. So
that could be a spin-off podcast. Jordan looking for love in London.
Love in London. That's not a podcast. That's a reality show, baby. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah, okay, you're right.
That's big money, man. But everything else is good, man. You was in Philly. We talked about it last week. We're gonna keep harping on that because you are doing things off the court as well. So how's everything with the franchising?
It's good, man. We crumble cookies. We're rolling. We're gonna open our first location in DC pretty soon, and then build it out from there. But it's my close friend Tobias Harris. He got connected with them. He's opened about 10 of them already, and we're making moves in the business world. So it's been fun, going that entrepreneur route in life after basketball.
Ooh, he got money. Ooh, that's big time, man. But man, let's jump into it, man. Let's jump into our X's and O's. At Indiana this week, and we were talking a lot last week about freezing cold takes, and unfortunately are probably going to find ourselves on an edition of freezing cold takes ourselves. We've had a lot of success with Indiana over the years. We talked about it at a healthy length last week. Kind of even talked down on our competitor Christian Watford, only for Indiana to beat the brakes off of us 63-45 this week, man. You got anything you want to say? A disclaimer on our statements?
Only thing I got to say is I take full responsibility and ownership of that freezing cold take because I was completely wrong. Indiana stopped us, and I just give all credit to them. I'm going to take the high road.
I ain't giving them no damn credit. And I'm saying we play without our leading scorer and best player. And as far as I'm concerned, we still beat we still beat the brakes off of Indiana every time we play them full strength. So if Tyler Wall plays, that's a completely different game, man. So, we clearly missed him. That's the third straight game without third straight full game without Tyler Wall, fourth game without Tyler Wall. And I think today this game or this weekend, it really started to show the effects that we were missing him. So let's talk about the things that you didn't like on the court this week.
Well, just to expand on the point you just made, right? Missing Tyler. I thought Jay Wright had a great point during the game when he talked about how Indiana was just blowing everything up, right? Blowing up screens. Man. We weren't able to run any of our action. And he said when he was at Villanova that they would go to isolations when that happened, right? And that's what Wisconsin probably wanted to do. Chucky Hepburn's really our only isolation player that was on the floor. But our best isolation player was sitting on the bench, in a boot in Tyler Wall. We've seen him all year, right? You go back to the Kansas game, you go back to some other, big games, and we're just clearing out a side and letting him go to work, and nobody could really stop him. I think this game, it was so glaring missing him because he would have opened up a lot of things offensively, and we were anemic offensively at times. So that was my biggest takeaway was just, man, we need that ankle to get right. We need him back on the floor.
Anemic is an understatement. 32% from the floor, 20% from the 3-point line, 5 of 24, and 4 of 11 from the free throw line. So yeah, anemic does not even begin to describe it. I think that Coach Gard did a good job at trying to adjust. What I did not like from that game was the second half start for now the second week in a row. They started the second half on an 18-2 run. The score is 20-20, which on the road without Tyler Wall, you can live with that. But when you come out and you give up an 18-2 run right away, it just kills any chance you have. And it really killed our fight this time, it seemed like. And, I feel like that sounds kind of like cliche, but you understand. I mean, we understand from playing the game for so many years. When you get hit in the mouth like that, you either respond, but Coach Ryan used to say either, when you dig yourself a hole, quit digging, right? And it kind of seemed like we just kept digging ourselves deeper and deeper into a hole. Some of the same problems that we had came back as far as keeping guards in front of us and containing guards. Jalen Hood-Schifino, who I thought we did a solid job in the first half, got loose in the second half and kind of spurred that run with 6 straight. Got dominated inside 42-22 in the paint, which again is an anomaly for Wisconsin teams. And then, like you said, blowing up all the plays with the stagnation was just out of pocket and out of brand for Wisconsin.
Yeah, we always talk about, even from when Coach Ryan was there and Coach Gard now, right? We want to impose our will against our opponent. And you talk about the screen action and them they imposed their will on us. That was evident. And I know Coach Gard is going to make that point in the locker room after the game and moving forward is, hey, guys, we can't let another team just physically impose their will on us like they did. And, I think Trace Jackson-Davis was incredible. We haven't touched on him yet, but man, his combination of agility and strength at his size, I think it's probably the best in the country. And, he just overpowered and his footwork overpowered Steven Crowell. And Crowell has made so many great, developments in his game. But when you go against an elite player like Trace Jackson-Davis, you got to bring it even a whole nother level, right? When I would play against Juwan Johnson or Draymond Green, I knew those nights I had to bring it, right? And it's a whole nother level of intensity that you have to bring. I don't think he approached the game that way. And when you go against an elite All-American type player like Trace Jackson-Davis is, he dominated inside.
No, 100%, and not just Trace Jackson-Davis, but the other disappointment I think was Carter Gilmore and Marcus Ilver, who only played 12 minutes. I thought that they really got beat up. Jordan Geronimo had 11 rebounds, 5 on the offensive end, 5 of their 9 offensive rebounds. And that's probably, I think, the third or fourth 3 or 4 man who has really played well against us, but it was disappointing to see, like you said, a 4-man physically impose their will on us. You can live with Hauser hitting shots from the outside. You can live with Coleman Hawkins getting hot. He was due and making shots. But when you just get beat up like that for Carter Gilmore and Marcus Ilver, that's something that's a little discouraging from a fan standpoint and coaching standpoint. Go ahead.
And to your point, those guys combined for 4 points and 5 rebounds total. Yeah. And they played a lot of minutes. So again, it keeps coming back to Tyler Wall, right? Those are his minutes, and he's going to bring so much more, and we just miss him. Yeah.
And backtracking, moving on into, because how we do, we're going to cover the things we don't like first and go into the things that we did like. There were positives to take away. And I think the positive was actually what you said. For me, I look at that as somewhat of a positive. Steven Crowell got, Trace Jackson-Davis, he was a far better player, and it was clear in that game. But, we've talked about Steven Crowell and how he's been coming on as a scorer. But I think to your point of stepping up to that next level, that's a great thing for him to see at this point in the season, maybe to get your butt kicked like that. Because now it's like, all right, I've been playing well. It's that humbling moment. You know what I'm saying? It's great the sun ain't always going to shine, man. So sometimes you need that humbling moment. And I think hopefully that was Steven Crowell's. And now he kind of sees that level that he needs to get to, because I'm sure he wants to be in the NBA, play professional overseas, whatever it is. Trace Jackson-Davis is a pro. So on some level, he's a pro. So for that to happen in that game, I think that's going to be a great come back to earth moment and a point of humility for Steven. Only 5 points for him, 6 rebounds, no assists. So a really uncharacteristic game, 1 for 4 from the line. He did battle though. I did appreciate him battling, and he fought more so, I think, than some other guys. But I don't like to call out effort. I think everybody plays hard all the time, but he did his thing.
Yeah, I think you're right on. Hit the nail right on the head. I mean, he's shown time and time again that he can learn and develop. Right. I mean, you look at his career from freshman year to sophomore year to now, and even just the growth in this year. When he's had bad games, he's bounced back and he's shown growth and development. And this is just the next stage in that process for him. And I don't see any reason why he won't come back and be better from this after going through a game like that against an elite All-American player.
100%. The other thing I did like was the defensive effort in the first half. Indiana came out, like you said, was blowing everything up. We were steady, and we kind of, obviously our defense isn't to blow things up, but we were really, really good on defense, and I thought matched their intensity in the first half. Obviously 42 points in the second half. We kind of ran into an avalanche, especially 18 of those 42 in the first 6 minutes of the half. But I thought the defense was great, and I really thought that Coach Gard did a good job when the offense was stagnant of mixing up some play calls. Obviously, everybody knows Wisconsin is a swing. You heard Jay Wright, you're going to run cuts. We're going to back screen. We're going to do all that. But when they started blowing it up, he went to, some wide pins for Connor Essegian. He went into a flex action with Connor coming back out the top. He hit a 3 off that. Went into a Spain screen where Steven Crowell ended up getting the shot block, got it back, and then scored. So I thought that was really a positive for me. Just again, we know Coach how good he is in those situations, but to see him kind of try and put guys in a situation to succeed is something that is very, very encouraging. And as a player, a former player, and someone who's recruited by Coach Gard, it almost makes me mad for real. Like I'm kind of jealous. Like he's really good at that, and I wish I could go back. But it's really cool to see from a player's perspective.
No, he is. And with Connor Essegian especially, right, we've been talking about that, getting him involved in more action, and he recognized it. And that game I thought was, a great example of how he's adjusting to whoever, Tyler Wall's down. All right, let's run some more action for Connor. Connor Essegian, 14 and 11. I think that's a positive. You look at him and probably his first double-double, and we'll have to fact check that. But 11 rebounds for a shooting guard. That was great to see. And just how aggressive and confident he is, even in an atmosphere like that. Indiana kid, you think maybe as a freshman he comes out a little wide-eyed, but he was just aggressive and confident like he always is. And I think the next thing that we want to see, obviously running the pin downs and that type of action for him, I want to see the ball in his hands a little more, right? I think he has playmaking ability to come off ball screens, and if a guy goes under, he can step back and shoot. Next year, he'll be coming off ball screens, hezzy 3,
for
KD
sure.
style. And
For sure.
That's part of his game that he has. And I think, now we can start to implement that a little more. Now that he's trusted defensively, he's one of your best scorers. I think we got to put the ball in his hands a little more.
For sure. I think, one thing that we don't do is the games, it's a ball screen game now. And, I think we do have to do a better job at putting pressure on the defense through the ball screen. We run a lot of pick and pops. Steven Crowell's a pop guy. But I would like to see us, have a rim runner and, force the defense to, get some gravity through the rim runner through a rolling big, and then kick out, force more closeout situations. There were times where, we did get either straight line drives or closeout situations, and the spacing just wasn't quite where it needed to be. You kick out and 2 guys are too close to each other, so one guy can guard 2. You can't make that extra pass and all that. But just to continue on the train before we get into it, we'll touch on that a little bit more later. But just to get in or continue on the positive train, also only 9 offensive rebounds was something you've talked about before that we'll get right. 42 rebounds, we got out rebounded, but 9 offensive rebounds to that team, and 5 to Jordan Geronimo, who we talked about. That's Tyler Wall's matchup. You got to think he's going to take some of those away. 0 offensive rebounds for Trace Jackson Davis. I think that's something that you can really say, hey, that we got a little bit better at that.
Yeah, well, he was making all of his shots, so I don't think he had a chance to go get offensive rebounds.
Well,
But
he
no,
wasn't. They
but
were
you're
10
right.
of 33 first half. Yeah, so they weren't.
No, I'm saying Trace's shots. I think he
Yeah,
was
well, yeah, he was making all his for sure. Yeah,
8 for 12 or whatever he was. But
yeah,
no, that is a crucial point that we'll have to look at, especially with Tyler out. He's a great rebounder. And to hold a team that athletic to that number was positive.
yeah. No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Well, we're gonna put that one on the shelf, man. We're gonna wash it away, forget anything we said, forget it even happened. Unfortunately, it did not. It did happen in the record books, so the Badgers do fall to 3-3. But that is gonna lead us into our scouting report this week. We will see what you can call a lighter part of the schedule. I don't know if there is a lighter part of the schedule in the Big Ten these days, but we will see the Penn State Nittany Lions and the Northwestern Wildcats. Two teams that are obviously very beatable. The X factors, give me my X factors for Penn State. We're going to see Jalen Pickett, who is arguably the best player or guard and player maybe in the Big Ten. He's averaging 17, 7, and 7 right now. That's a stat line in the Big Ten that I think maybe only guys like Denzel Valentine have put up in the past. No surprise that Penn State has more guards that are coming strong. And then they have an X factor in Seth Lundy, who's kind of a do-it-all guard, can play the 3-4, handle it a little bit. But what are you looking forward to in this game?
Well, I think you just said the word guard 5 times there, and that makes sense because I think it's 90% of their scoring comes from their guard play. They basically start 4 guards, and then they bring, they only have maybe two bigs that really see minutes.
Yeah.
So I think, we've talked about it all year long, right? How do we contain the ball? How do we keep the ball out of the paint? And how do we, like Indiana did against us, right? Blow up those screens and just keep that, primary defender in front of the ball. That's going to be the key to this one. You mentioned this team is beatable. We've only beat Penn State. We're 2-3 in our last 5 against Penn State. Penn State just beat Indiana by 20. So, I think our antenna is going to be up on this one that, hey, this isn't going to be a walk in the park.
Well, no question. I think we're in that situation too now that Indiana and Illinois were in when we went there, where it's a little bit of a must win. We're reeling, lost our last 3, so you hope to see kind of that reverse effect, and we kind of jump on them. Hopefully, we get Tyler Wall back. That obviously would be a welcome sight, but you never know. And it's going to be a tough challenge defensively. Again, it's more guards, like we touched on so many times. We struggle with guards, but they run a lot of pin down actions, and that puts pressure on those bigs to either come up and impact the ball or stay back and kind of force the long two. Or obviously we want to force long twos, but Seth Lundy, Jalen Pickett, those guys can get crazy in that area. So it's going to be really important for Max Klesmit, Chucky to be physical with those guys and, kind of disrupt their rhythm.
For sure. Agree 100%.
Moving on, let's talk Northwestern real quick. Northwestern, again, is a team that, that's like no disrespect to our guys, Juice and Alex over there. I forget the name of their podcast, but on their deal over there. But everybody beats up Northwestern. That's it. I'm saying. So, I'm gonna just keep it real with you. So we got to go get that one, man. Wildcat Alley, I'm sorry, is the name of their podcast. And I've talked to Juice, got to play against Juice overseas and stuff. Always really good players over there, man. From John Sherna to Juice Thompson. Sabluski, man, they just had a lot of good players. Sanjay Lumpkin, and this year their guys are Boo Buie. For you, John, you might not know this. Is the younger brother of former Penn State star Taylor Battle, and also now the assistant coach over at Northwestern. He's averaging 15 a game, as long as Chase Audich. So more good guard play. So what do you see for this one?
Well, first off, I want to ask you a question. Is Boo Buie the best name in college basketball?
It's up there, man. It's up there. I didn't know his last name was Bowie. I knew that was Taylor's brother for the longest time, and I didn't know his last name was Bowie. But yeah, that's a pretty good name. And
I think it's up there. But you look at, again, they beat Michigan State, they beat Indiana. So we say these games are beatable, but there are no just walkthroughs in the Big Ten, and we're going to have to bring it. I'm more focused on how we respond right after we talked about the Indiana game. Getting their will imposed on us. I want to see that in the Penn State game and the Northwestern game, right? The level of physicality that we play with, the intensity, the energy that we play with, especially when you've lost 3 in a row. Guys come in a little down, like slumped your shoulders. So I'm just going to be looking at body language, physicality, effort, all that stuff, because I think that's going to be the determining factor in these next 2 games.
Facts. This is a win by any means necessary game, and energy, like you said, body language is going to be a big factor in that. But they might be Indiana and Michigan State, but I promise you, any team we play will and can catch disrespect on this podcast. So it does not matter. You know what I'm saying? Moving forward, that's just what it is. Real quick, man, let's do a little midseason recap. Badgers 6-6, 14 to play in the Big Ten, coming off, in my opinion, what was our worst game of the season. But let's just, what do you see? Who do you see as the defensive leaders right now, the X factor, and guys who need to give more moving forward?
We've hit on, how I feel about Connor Season. I'd like to see the ball in his hands a little more. But when we're looking at kind of in totality, right, we were 11-2. We're a top 15 team in the country. We're 3-0 in the Big Ten. And then you lose your best player in Tyler Wall and leading scorer and best defender. And now you're sitting at 11-5 and dropping in the Big Ten standards. I mean, that's what it is. It's just about health. Because I honestly believe if we have him, we win those 3 games. And we're sitting there at 14-2 and you're a top 10 team in the country, and everybody's patting you on the back. But it just came down to an ankle sprain. And, that's just the most glaring thing that stands out to this, first half of the season.
100%. I'd like to see, like I said, we talked about early in the season, the pace that they played with, and the pace has kind of gone down. Obviously, Tyler Wall being out does not help that. But I do want to see that pace go back up. I want to see them I think that's going to help create easy baskets, especially against a team like Indiana. And, the scouting report on Wisconsin is, unathletic. So you gotta press up, maybe a little bit of maybe not completely true, but so everybody's going to press up on us. So it's going to be important for us to play with rhythm, play with pace, and create to create easy shots. Anyway, like I said, Johnny, let's go take us into the word on campus. And speaking of athleticism, we got probably the most athletic white guy I know, man, on the show. My dog, man. I'm excited for him to be here with us. His first round pick to the Houston Rockets back in 2015. Badger great, the pride of Wisconsin, Sheboygan's own, my bad as well, 2-time Final Four attendee, and also almost got us a national championship, but a hell of a run, man. We got the one and only Sam Dekker. Sammy, appreciate you joining us for this segment of the show.
Of course, that almost is going to haunt me forever. So I appreciate you putting that in for me. And the athleticism part, I'm flattered. But
Jordan's always got to put in those subtle jabs, doesn't he?
I know. Trust me, he's my teammate now, so it's nonstop. So, but you have to humble him and give it back to him. But as long as the athleticism part, I think Johnny's got me on the vert. I don't think I jump quite as high as Jon.
No, man. I'll gladly take the second most athletic white guy place behind you on that scale.
Where's Keaton right, man?
Oh, Keaton's up there.
Keaton's up there.
Keaton
and Showy
closely by J.P. Gavinsky.
J.P. Gavinsky, man. Hey, man, but listen, Sam, we've talked a little bit about Indiana, the game last week. Talk about what's to come. We did have Mike Heller step in and get a little spicy with the Badgers this week, man. So this is our word on campus topic of the week. The tweet was, today is another very good example of what the Badgers are in college basketball. Incredibly well coached, but not talented enough. Recruiting high level and depth is and has been a long time knock on this program. So I think that there's no better person to have on here to discuss this than yourself. First of all, what do you think was the X factor for you guys 2 Final Four runs? I mean, I think for me personally it was depth, but I want to hear your opinion on that.
It's funny you say that because that was the first word that just popped in my mind when you said that was depth. We could roll 9 or 10 deep if needed. I think in crunch time games and big matchups, we were about 8-man rotation, which, as you guys played for Coach Ryan, he was kind of a 8-man rotation guy. Sometimes would choke it to 7 if he wasn't trusting everyone. But if we needed to go 9 or 10 when we had foul trouble, those 2 Final Four seasons, we had the second Final Four season, we had like Shoei kind of as a 9th, 10th guy. Sophomore year, we kind of, Douye in and out of the rotation a little bit. We even threw Evan Anderson in big games once in a while if we needed to, plug the middle up. So, having depth and guys that are okay with being part of that depth, 9th, 10th man coming in will get, 8 to 10 minutes and be key spark. That's a huge thing. I remember our Sweet 16 game, we were down 6 or 7 in North Carolina with about 8 minutes left. And Trey Jackson wasn't quite back yet. Josh got in some foul trouble, and we needed to go to the bench. Coach Ryan brings in Zach Showalter, and he goes on a personal, I think, 6 or 7-0 run, ties the game up, and they were kind of shell-shocked, like, who's this guy coming in, not top of the scouting report, coming in and changing the game. And so instances like that remind me about how important it is to have depth, especially in the college game.
So, Johnny, what would you say, and Sam, you as well, what are your thoughts on that tweet as a whole?
I mean, I get what he's saying, but show me another college basketball team that loses their leading scorer and best defender and doesn't take a big decline in their level of play, right? I'll wait. I don't know if there's another team, it's just such a big loss when you lose a kid like Tyler. That I think the tweet is a little bit unwarranted. Obviously we'd love to have depth and win those games, but I don't think it was necessary.
I would agree. I think the thing that people need to remember about the Wisconsin basketball program, it's not the glitz and the glam that sometimes we want, myself included, but when it comes to the vitriol sometimes towards this coaching staff, you have a staff that came in replacing a legendary coach mid-season, and since then taking over multiple Big Ten titles, multiple Sweet 16s. Those are benchmarks that, it's not a Final Four, but those are benchmarks that teams would love to have. You talk to a Maryland or a Penn State fan, no knock on their programs at all, good programs, but they would love to say, we have 2 or 3 Big Ten titles in the last 7 years. So to be able to say that and in the same breath saying we need changes, it's a good problem to have, but we also have to sit back and remember where this program was in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, going into today. Winning like that isn't easy. So to just kind of throw it off to the side like they haven't done anything is technically a lie. Yeah, they've lost games we don't want them to lose. Sure, maybe the pace we want to pick up, but to act like this program hasn't been successful would be lying to ourselves. So yeah, are there things we'd like to see different? Sure, I think that's anywhere. But they've done some amazing things here, and we can't disregard that.
Right, and I think to immediately just go to that tweet when you lose a guy like Tyler Wall is unfair, because like I just said in our last segment, if he's healthy, I believe we win those last 3 games. We're 14-2. We're a top 10 team, and we're at the top of the Big Ten standings. And a media guy doesn't even think about taking a shot like that. So Jordan, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I think we win at least 1 game, and if we win 1 out of 2, then we're still at the top of the Big Ten standings. So, and it looks like, we talked about it last week. I mean, it's one of those. It was one of those games where if you win it, 3-3 looks a whole lot different than 4-2. So that's just, especially in the Big Ten when every game matters. Go ahead, Sam.
And I don't think people realize quite how much Wall does for this team.
Yeah.
He guards the other team's best big or guard when needed. He's switchable 1 through 5. He rebounds the heck out of his position. He's physical. You see him in these big crunch time moments, like Marquette games or these tight games where maybe he's not having the best offensive night. Last 7 minutes, he is babying dudes on the block. He's going to his bread and butter, his spin moves, his pump fakes, getting to the line. And when he plays with that physicality, the rest of the team, feeds off of that. And then Chucky starts hitting shots. Jordan Davis starts hitting shots. So that's a huge hole to be missing. And Jon, like you said, like when you lose your best player, it means something. When we were 36-3, we went to Rutgers, who was 1-10 in Big Ten play without Frank, and lost on the road. Like, it's a big hole to fill because you practice all week with your full team. The morning of the game ruled out. It's like losing your quarterback the day of the game. You change everything. So, it's one of those things that, game plan gets thrown out the window and becomes a crapshoot. And that's what you see happens in these games.
No, that's a great point. And I thought about that when you were talking about your Final Four runs. Like if that team loses you or Frank for 5 games, it completely changes the dynamic of the team, right? And maybe you lose 3 in a row. And now so that's why I just think it was an unfair tweet, because you're losing your best player and he's such an impactful player that you can't. Obviously, you want to have a next man up mentality and be able to have a bunch of, other 4- and 5-star players that are just happen to be sitting on your bench to go in there. But that's just not realistic.
I think the last sentence in the tweet, recruiting high level and depth is and has been a long time knock on this program, is literally a lie. I think that we've had how many 3-4 first round picks, which obviously relative to Michigan State, Ohio State, maybe is not a lot, but in the landscape of college basketball, that's a lot of talent. We've had several All-Americans, several All Big Ten first team players, several pros, whether it's NBA or overseas. So I think that's really off base. I think the one area where maybe he has somewhat of a point, which I think is kind of implicit in the tweet, is maybe the style of play is a little outdated in terms of the pace, some of the action that we run. But we've talked about before how Coach Gard does do a good job at adjusting, with Spain screens, with wide pins, things like that. But I personally would love to see not even necessarily high level, but maybe even like a rim running 5 where you can develop into a shooter, an athlete at the 5 position. I've said for years when, Wisconsin has guys like Ray Nixon, like Sam, like Orlando on the wing, those are the best teams that Wisconsin has had because it gives an element of athleticism and just an X factor within the system. But for me, we just don't do a good enough job at putting pressure on defenses, putting them in, like I said earlier, in closeout situations, and it hampers the offense at times. But again, I think they are trying to do that. I think Johnny Davis was a guy who did that. I think Connor's a guy who gives a different element, a more, modern element. But I think it also just make it easier for guys like Chucky. If you can play a wide spread or a spread ball screen and get downhill and find guys on the backside. So that is one thing that I would like to see us recruit, maybe just like a rim running 5 or something like that, who would help.
Well, to kind of go against the grain in a way here. The part in the tweet I think about the recruiting, I honestly think being able to have 5 or 4 guys on the court that a team has to respect to score, to put pressure on you, is very important, especially at the college game right now. Having a wing or a couple wing depth that can break a defense down when, Chucky's getting, doubled off of a screen, or, they're taking a crawl or rolls away, and you can swing that to a wing that can even, quick rip baseline, get downhill, just keep the defense on their toes. Like you said with depth earlier, like your teams, you guys had guys off the bench like Rob Wilson that could come in, and teams are like, oh man, this guy can get in the paint, get 2 feet in the paint, dump offs, a little midi. That takes pressure off of you. We had, we could play off Nigel. He'd have 18, 19 in a night. Vito could come in, hit, 6 mid-range jumpers. All of a sudden, he's got 11, 12 points going. When you have wing depth that can put pressure on a defense, I think it takes so much pressure off your guards, so much pressure off your bigs, where Wisconsin is a big 1-5 pick and roll action, bread and butter team. So when you can recruit some of these guys and come in, get downhill, get in the paint, get to the free throw line, it opens up your offense.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, and to be fair, I think that we do have that person. I think there's going to be when you have a guy like Marcus Ilver, if he can come along, I like his game. He can shoot it. He's athletic at the 4. I think he's just maybe not quite ready. And to the coaching staff's defense, it's hard when you're playing. Every game matters in the Big Ten, and it's hard to throw out a sophomore or a freshman for 25 because you can't afford mistakes. And Coach Gard used to say that. I remember my freshman year, I made a mistake, and I think I came to the bench and said, "My bad." And Coach Gard snapped on me. He was like, "My bad," gets us beat. And that's just what it is. So it's like it's easy to sit here and say development and all that, but it's hard to bring guys along in game situations. And if you really break it down, it's not a lot of games either. You're playing 20 Big Ten games and 30 games throughout the year. So it's not a lot of time to get these guys up to speed. But can you imagine? I like a lineup with even, Chucky, a Max Klesman, Tyler Wall at the 5, or he can short roll, and you got Marcus Ilver who can shoot it, and Connor on the backside where you can't really leave guys if Marcus Ilver is making shots. So I think that, and to your point, Sam, too, we had, Rob was up and down with playing time. And again, it was some things that Rob, maybe just didn't do the little things that allowed Coach Ryan to trust him. But I thought if we would have had Rob rolling offensively as good as Josh was, we had a Final Four team, because then you have myself, John, Keaton, all could score, and then you have a guy like Rob who is another factor. So I think in fairness to Mike Heller, I understand where he's going, but also in fairness to the coaching staff, it's difficult to make those things happen. You can't just wave a wand and say, we're gonna do that.
Sam, you had a good point that you guys really didn't have any offensive deficient players on the floor, and that's when Wisconsin's at their best, right? So what do you think that was? Was it recruiting the right type of guys? Was it developing them? Was it a combination of both? Was it a combination of your guys' chemistry and how you guys played off each other? What do you think the difference was there?
It's kind of the perfect storm of a mix of talent and personalities, and then rare development stories that you see. You don't expect Frank to go from playing 12 minutes a game to being first team all Big Ten to the next year being National Player of the Year. Like, that was a big jump, right? And I think we had a lot of guys that are unafraid to be themselves from day one, like Nigel Hayes, like Vito, like Trey Jackson, that had this like rare air of confidence about them, right? And that feeds to each other. So when you have, like I said, 4.5 guys on the court that think I can get a bucket on the guy guarding me, that just makes it a whole new situation, because those nights, we all were in those nights where maybe Jordan gets in foul trouble or doesn't have it going. We're playing through Leuer, and you're saying, okay, if no one else is confident right now, I have 8 eyes on me when I get the ball. And that's not easy. And I sometimes you kind of see Chucky kind of dealing with that. Last year, you saw Johnny Davis in some big games. Johnny had 10 eyes on him at times last year. And that's where I sometimes watch and I'm like, man, if he only had one or, I had if we went with we called our Redwoods lineup, if we put me at the 2 and we had Douye at the 3, who's 6'10", and Nigel at the 4, and we had 5 ball handlers, but almost all 7-footers. And I feel like if I get doubled, I'm hitting Douye, and Douye's knocking down a 22-footer from the top. Like, when you have a rare breed of talent and size, I think the recruiting in that situation was really, really good. And Coach Ryan and Gard and Coach Close and Lamont put together an incredible roster. So in the recruiting aspect of it, to come full circle to that tweet, like, Wisconsin can recruit. Bronson Koenig had offers from everywhere in the country. I was a 5-star. Nigel had 6 Big Ten offers. Frank had 5 Big Ten offers. Like, you had these guys. Josh was offered by like everybody. Mm-hmm. You can get these guys. You can get these guys on campus. We've seen it. It's just a matter of, guys wanting to. And that's a tough part of recruiting. It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy game. And, Wisconsin has the ability to. We just hope they can do it here.
Yep. And I think again, having you guys, they're the team that you guys put together, along with guys like Johnny Davis, and now Connor Essegian coming along, just kind of his style of play, I think is going to make it exciting for more guys of that caliber to continue to come through Wisconsin.
And people forget Greg Gard had Tyler Hero committed to Wisconsin.
Yep.
Like, I feel like people think of that as a recruiting loss, he had Tyler committed for a year and telling teams on AAU circuits, telling coaches, I don't want to talk to you. I'm committed to Wisconsin. He was wearing Wisconsin shirts for warmups in AAU tournaments, telling everybody I'm a Wisconsin Badger. And then obviously things change. Coach Cal calls you, you want to be an NBA player. Like, he made a decision that, look, he just signed a $160 million deal or whatever it was. It worked for him. But I wouldn't count that as a recruiting loss. He wanted to be a Badger for a long time and still has love for the Badgers. I know Ty well. Like, he made a decision at the end of the day for him, but it wasn't a knock on Wisconsin. And he was Wisconsin's first choice if you go back and actually take a look at the whole situation.
Is it, do you guys, before we sign off, is it possible to get to that level where guys do not want to decommit from Wisconsin to go to a Kentucky? And is that even something that you want the Badger program to be about? If that makes sense.
John?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can get to that point. Obviously, there's always going to be competition but now I think the game changer in all this is NIL, and because that's going to determine really where a lot of these 5-star, 4-star kids are going, right? Let's just call that what it is. And if Wisconsin can put that together, I think absolutely.
Yep.
I would agree with that. I think us three have spent many years in Wisconsin. We still go back in the summers. We still watch these teams and root for them like we're still on these teams. And we can all say when you go to Madison, there's something different about the place. There's a reason we all committed there. You go to the Kohl Center now, and there's all these banners, now recent Final Four banners, very recent Big Ten championship banners. One of the longest streaks of NCAA tournament appearances. Success is there, and it's proven. And people know that when they walk through the program, walk there as a recruit. It's just about, the notion of making it sexy, if that makes any sense. Kind of giving these kids, showing them what they want to see. Because Wisconsin can do it. They have all the infrastructure. They have all the money in the world. They have all the glitz and the glam, the renovations yearly. They have as good as an athletic budget and athletic team that will put all the infrastructure for elite talent and player development for you. It's a matter of showing that and proving it and flexing your muscles a little bit and saying, you want to be here. You want to get to the next level. We can do that for you. And we have everything available for you to do it.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. And I think that has been somewhat of a hot button topic over at the school. I think, me personally, I would love to start seeing, little things like All-American banners up there alongside. It's cool. They got Frank's number retired, and Michael Finley's finally up there. Devin's going up there as well. Or Devin's not up there yet. Should be up there. I think you should see a banner with NBA draft picks with All-Americans and things like that, because I think those little things do matter in the recruiting game and just showing your players love. But I think Coach Gard is headed down that road. But we will leave it there because that is another conversation for another day. Since John mentioned NIL, y'all, anybody listening, make sure to go check out Sam. Just started a new podcast with the Varsity Collective, and he's a natural on the mic, so make sure y'all go check him out. As for us, we will sign off another edition of a Shot of Wisky podcast. Again, make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you get your podcasts, and on YouTube at Beyond Big Ten with the number 10. Also, make sure to follow along on all socials, TikTok, IG, and Twitter at Beyond the Big Ten. Again, the number not spelled out. I am Jordan Taylor. That's Jon Leuer. And for Sam Dekker, we appreciate you joining in with us. I'm sure you'll be back to kick it with us, man. We'll catch y'all next time.
Beyond the Big Ten is a network of podcasts that aims to be your go-to resource for all things Big Ten. We cover the entire conference with shows hosted by ex-players and athletic alumni, aiming to be your go-to source of information and entertainment for your favorite team. Hosted by ex-Big Ten players, media, and insiders, our podcasts are focused on giving diehard fans and those alums an inside scoop about the teams and people that make the Big Ten Conference one of the most watched and most talked about conferences in sports. We're excited to talk Big Ten basketball with you wherever you may be. Subscribe now.